Hello there. We are continuing with our series, Learning Fundamentals of Accounting 1. And in this video, we are doing suspense account. So we will be doing this question in this video. So you can pause the video and just write the question so that we continue with the video. So you can just pause and write the question. Okay, so I will do a short theory on the suspense account. I already pre-wrote it. So this is why we create a suspense account. We create a suspense account when the trial balance has not balanced. To learn how we do, or rather how we create a trial balance, it is in our previous video. So please look at our videos which we have recorded before this one, so that you get a clear understanding on where we are. So that is why we create a suspense account when the trial balance has not balanced. And we will see it in this question that we will do. So it means that we create a suspense account when the debit balance is not equal to the credit balance in our trial balance. Okay? Yeah. So that is the essence of the suspense account. Now, the format of the suspense account is just like any other ledger account, a T account. Okay? A suspense account is just like any other ledger account, and its format is a T account. So without much further ado, let us understand how to deal with a question on suspense account using this question. Okay? So on 31st December 2025, a trial balance failed to balance after a bookkeeping done by an inexperienced bookkeeper. The trial balance failed to balance by a debit figure of 35,800. So that debit figure of 35,800, now this one will be our opening balance in our suspense account. Okay, that 35,800 will be our opening balance in our suspense account. Okay, so now due to further investigations, they found the following errors. So now we will start solving. So now for A, a payment to a creditor by check 8,500 was erroneously credited to the creditor's account. So what do we understand in this question? The moment we pay a creditor, we will be reducing our liability. Okay? Payment to a creditor, we are reducing liability, right? And when we reduce liability, what do we do? Recall. For liabilities, revenue, and capital, when they increase, what do? We credit. When we decrease, we debit. Okay? So now, payment to a creditor, we are reducing liability. And when we reduce a liability, we debit. But what has happened in this case? It is erroneously credited. So instead, let us assume that we are here at negative 8,500. That is our debt, okay? And we want to reach to zero debt, okay? But now, instead of us moving to here, that bookkeeper credited, instead of debiting us to zero, that bookkeeper credited us to, now when we add 8,500, we'll get 17,000. Okay, now this is the mistake of the bookkeeper. Instead of setting this amount to zero because we paid, that bookkeeper, it's like the bookkeeper borrowed for us more money. Okay, instead of the bookkeeper recording the payment, he credited, and when he credited, he showed us that we have an extra 8,500 to pay, meaning it's like we have a debt of 17,000. But this is a mistake, okay? So how do we correct this mistake? The only correction that we can make is to shift from here where the bookkeeper has brought us, we go back to zero, okay? Now, since this value is on the credit side of our creditor's account, we need the creditor's account to be zero, because it should be zero, because we paid the creditor. Okay, so the transaction which will be here is that since we are reducing this creditor's account from negative 17,000 to zero, it means that we will do what? We will debit the creditor's account and we will credit with 17,000. Okay, and we learned that whenever you debit, okay, we learned that whenever you debit, there is always a credit. Now we credit the suspense account. Why are we crediting the suspense account? Because the purpose of suspense account is to correct the errors. So any correction that we are making in a certain account, the corresponding account should be suspense account. That is the purpose of the suspense account. Okay, so suspense account also 17,000. Okay, I hope that one is clear. If there is any question, please comment and I will reply to your question. So let us go to the investigation B. Purchases daybook was undercast. Purchase undercast. So what do we mean by undercast? It was reduced in value. Okay, purchases daybook was undercast by 20,000. By 20,000. Yeah. So the value of purchases which was recorded was a value which is way less by 20,000. So already we know when it comes to purchases, we treat them as assets. Okay, we treat them as assets, and when we treat them as assets, we know that assets, when they increase, it is a debit, and when they decrease, it is a credit. So this value that was recorded in the purchase, under purchases, is a value which is less, and we need to add on to that value which was recorded by 20,000. Okay, so in order for us, this one is treated as asset. So in order for us to correct, okay, the correction, what do we need to do? We need to add 20,000 to the recorded value of purchases, so that it may be now the exact value of purchases. Okay, so how do we add 20,000 in the purchases, in the purchase value? We debit purchases. The moment we debit, if you look at recall, positive change, we are adding, right? So it is a positive change. What do? We debit that account. So that is why we are debiting. So if we are debiting, what are we crediting? We are crediting suspense account. Okay, suspense account. Why? Because this is the account which we are using to correct any errors which are found, and this amount is 20,000. Okay, any questions? Please put them in the comment section and I will answer. Wages were overcast by 3,000. Wages were overcast by 3,000. Now this is the opposite of this. Okay, so wages, they are treated as expenses. Okay, wages are expenses. So if we look at expense, when they increase, we debit. When they decrease, we credit. So wages are overcast, meaning the value which is written under wages is exaggerated by 3,000. Meaning the moment we are correcting, what do? We will need to less 3,000 to the recorded value of wages. So now, what is the transaction? The transaction is we debit the suspense account and we credit the wages account. Why are we crediting the wages account? Because we want to we want to have a negative change in the wages account, because the value which was written there was exaggerated. So we need to less what is in the wages account by 3,000, meaning that is a negative change, and that is why we are crediting. Okay, that is why we are crediting wages account. And suspense account we are debiting because we are correcting the error which was made. Okay, hope that one is clear. So when we go to D, a cash sale of 150,000 was completely omitted from the books. Cash sale, and this cash sale is of 150,000. Yeah, now this one is a complete omission. It was omitted completely. Okay, so what we will do in this case, the moment you will see a correction whereby, okay, the moment you will see an investigation whereby a transaction is completely omitted, there is no way you will introduce a suspense account. Okay, because the transaction which involved in the cash sale, all those transactions were omitted. If you look at this case, or rather in our first case, payment to a creditor was credited erroneously in the creditor's account, but the cash which was used to pay the creditor was already recorded. So it is only one transaction which was missing, and that is why we involved the suspense account. Here we are only making changes in one account, purchases and wages, and that is why we are including the suspense account. But in this case, both the two accounts which were involved in the cash sale were both omitted. So the moment you see a complete omission, you don't include any correction which will involve the suspense account. So in this case, the moment we are making a cash sale, it means that we are having an increase in our cash. So we debit cash, okay? And the moment we make a sale, we are increasing our revenue, okay? So when revenue increases, what do? We credit. So we credit revenue, but we have a specific revenue channel which we call sales. So we credit sales, okay? Now both the debit and the credit is the same amount, 150,000. So this is the transaction. So if you look at it, we haven't included suspense account, okay? But it is an error which was done. So in the cash account, we will include this transaction, and in the sales account, we will include this transaction, okay? Yeah. So if we move to E, payment of rent, 50,000 was credited to rent account and debited to bank account. So here, payment of rent of 50,000 was credited to rent account and debited to bank account. If you look at the error of E, you can see that this one doesn't translate to a payment, because the moment we pay rent via bank, we know that we will need to credit bank. And since rent is an expense, the moment we are paying for an expense, it means that the expense change in that account has increased, and in expense, a positive change we debit. So whatever has been done here is that instead of them debiting the rent account, they have debited the bank account. And instead of them crediting the bank account, they credited rent account. So what we are doing is that we just want to alternate. We alternate these errors, okay? So how do we alternate? First of all, what we need to do is offset. We need to offset the errors, first of all. So how do we offset the errors? So since for the rent account, it needs to be on the debit side, so what do? We need to less this amount which is on the credit. And how do we less that amount? We less it by debiting. So we debit rent account. And what do we credit? We credit the suspense account. Why are we crediting the suspense account? Because we are correcting the error which was being made in the first place in the rent account, okay? Now this is offsetting. Offsetting is returning to the original place. Returning to the original place. Okay, in the first place, rent was to be at 0. Okay, so that is where we are returning, first of all. And then also the same case will be done for the bank account. The bank account has been increased with 50,000. So what do? We need to decrease the value which is on the debit side, and we decrease it by debiting the suspense account, and we credit the bank account. Okay, so the amount which we are using in all this offsetting is 50,000. Now, since we have offset the errors in the two accounts, now we can make the correction. Now we can make the true transaction which should be made. Now that is where we debit rent account and we credit bank account by 50,000. Okay, so in a transaction whereby the accounts have been, how they have treated the two accounts is on the opposite side, know that first of all you will need to offset the error in the two accounts involving suspense account. And then once you've reached the original place, now you include the third transaction, which should be what was to be done in the first place. Okay, so if you look at it, we have corrected first of all the two accounts, and then lastly we have included the transaction which was to be done in the first place. Okay, I hope you've gotten it. So let us move to our last investigation. A credit sale of 7,500 has been debited to a customer's account as 5,700. Let me move to another page. That one is F. Okay, so under F, what was done, the error is that they have debited the debtor's account by 5,700, and they have credited sales because it was a credit sale. Okay, since it is a credit sale, that is why I have included the debtor's account, because a credit sale is you are selling goods on credit, and that customer who is purchasing it on credit is a debtor. So this is the error, but the correct value, the only mistake that they have done is that they have reduced the value of which the transaction should be. The correct value is 7,500, but they have included 5,700. So what we just need to do is we need to increase this value up to 7,500. Okay, that is what we need to do. Okay, so what we are being told here, because someone might ask, if we're increasing this value, then why are we not increasing that of sales? If you look at the question, we have been told that the credit sale of 7,500, already this value has been recorded in the sales. but we are being told that it has been debited to a customer's account as this. Okay, so the error is only on the debtor's account. Okay, but under the sales, this value is already correct. Okay, so the error is only on the debtor's account, the customer's account. So we need to increase this value to 7,500. Okay, and how do we increase? Since data is an asset, a positive increase means that we will debit the data account. And since we are correcting an error, we will credit the suspense account. Now, by what amount? The difference between 7,500 and 5,700, of which it will be 1,800. Okay, I hope you've understood. So, if you look at the question, we've already tackled all the investigations and what they mean. Okay, but now we are required to record journal entries to correct the above errors. Now, in this video, I won't draw a journal entry because I already did it in our, I think it is the second video, chapter 2. So please review that video and you will see that when you have the transactions of A, these transactions of B, these transactions of C, these transactions of D, these transactions of E, and these transactions of F, you can draw the journal entries. Okay, so I'm not leaving you dry. What I'm just trying to do is to enable you to practice for yourself. Okay, so allow me in this video to just prepare the suspense account. Okay, yeah. So as we prepare the suspense account, I already told you that the suspense account, the format is just like any other ledger account. It is a T format. So how we draw a ledger account, we already discussed it in our last video on ledger accounts. It is chapter 3. So if you have not seen that video, please go and see it so that I don't repeat how we do a ledger account again. Okay, so what will enable us to fill in, or rather key in, our suspense account details is what? These transactions. Okay, so under ledger accounts, we said that the moment we are inputting the transactions in an account, we look at the transactions which involve that account specifically. Okay, so first of all, let us start by writing date and the currency, date and the currency. So we first of all start by the opening balance in the suspense account. It is a debit figure, 35,800. So on the debit side, 35,800, right? And this one is the opening balance. Okay, so now we start. Okay, someone might ask, what are we writing as the date? What we are writing as the date is the date of investigation, and we will just use 31st December 2025. Okay, we will use that date all around. 31st December 2025. Okay, yeah. So let us start with our first transaction. A, we're involving the suspense account. It is on the credit, 17,000. So on the credit side, 17,000. What is the corresponding account? The corresponding account is creditors. So we write creditor. Okay, the date is 31st December 2025. We go to the other transaction B. Suspense account is on the credit side, 20,000, and the corresponding account is purchases. Purchases, 20,000. 31st December 2025. We go to part C, the correction. Suspense account on the debit side. Okay, 3,000. The corresponding account is wages. So we are going to the debit side of the suspense account. We write 3,000, and it is there. The corresponding account is wages account. Then part D, this one doesn't involve the suspense account, so we leave it at that. When we come to E, we have 3 transactions, but only 2 of them involve the suspense account. So we start with the first one, whereby the suspense account is being affected on the credit side by 50,000. So on the credit side, 50,000. The corresponding account is rent account. So we write rent. The date, 31st December 2025. And then the other one is on the debit side, the same 50,000, but the corresponding account is bank. So bank, 50,000. Okay. This third one doesn't involve the suspense account, so we leave it at that. Now we come to our last transaction, which is F. It involves the suspense account on the credit side. So the date, 31st December 2025. On the credit side, the corresponding account is debtor, and the amount is 1,800. Okay, so we've already keyed in all the transactions which involves the suspense account. So in an examination, the moment you are being given an opening balance, you have been given the investigations, and you've done the corrections, the moment you prepare the suspense account, your suspense account, the moment you are looking for the account balance, the balance should be 0. Let me explain. The moment the suspense account has a debit figure of 35,800, it means that there is an error. So when there is an error, there is a balance in suspense account. Okay, and when there is no error, there is no balance in the suspense account. So we've already made our corrections. The moment you make a correction, then we are here, no error. At the beginning we had an error, and that is why we had the opening balance. Okay, so since we've done our corrections, and these transactions are the proof of our correction. Then when we are to look at the balance of this account, we should get 0. The moment you will make a correction in the suspense account and you look for the balance and see that you have a positive or a negative balance, just know that you've gone wrong. It should be 0. Okay? So let us see. 31st 12 2025. 31st 12 2025. So how do we look for the balance? We add the debit and the credit. Okay, so I did add up front, but I can still add. If I start with this one, 17 20 50 18 7 8 5 6 7 8. On the credit side, I have 88,800. And what about on the credit? On the debit, 35,800, 3,000, and 50,000. I also have 88,800. And then I close that account. So this is how your suspense account should look. You see, there is no balance, which I am bringing forward, meaning I've done all the corrections. Okay, so that is how you do a question revolving suspense account. Okay, so any questions, please feel free to comment. Okay, please comment because of the feedback. And if this video has been of help to you, please share it with your fellow peers. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. See you in the next video.